Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So yesterday we did get a little bit of transfer news, sort of anyway. So basically, as you could tell by the title, it looks as though the club are opting against signing PSG loanee EDOUARD MICHUT. Now, we will have a look at the statement in just a moment, but I feel like this will be really interesting as a hub in the comments to see what you guys think on this and what your guys' thoughts are on this, because on social media there's been a real mixed bag, and I love that kind of discussion when there is a bit of a mixed bag and there are such different ends of the spectrum in terms of what people think on a certain topic. And this one, it is exactly that, because there's some who think the club have really dropped the ball on this and should have just signed EDOUARD MICHUT because of his potential, and they think that he could grow into an outstanding player. And there's others who think it's absolutely correct, the decision, and they didn't see anything in him. I am sort of in between, and I hate being that person that sits on the fence, because usually I really do go for one or the other, don't I, usually? But I am sort of in between, because with EDOUARD MICHUT, if you remember, we first signed him for almost the entirety of the first half of the season, or a large chunk anyway. I might have exaggerated a bit there, but a large chunk anyway. He weren't even getting into the squad, and it was mainly because of fitness, and he didn't seem up to scratch or up to speed to play the English game in the Championship, which is of course a very physical league. And I don't know whether there was the odd niggle here and there as well. So we didn't really manage to see him. And then when we did see him originally, it was just little bit pieces, and I think some, including myself a little bit, I suppose, to an extent, were a little bit blinded by the sort of PSG tag. So everything he did do, even if it was the absolute mere basics, it was uplifted to be like the next Xavi or the next Iniesta, do you know what I mean? He'd literally come on for the final 10 minutes of a game, do the absolute mere basics, be it, he'd pick up the ball, backwards pass it, and everyone would say he was the next best thing, do you know what I mean? When he really wasn't. He was actually very much bang average, not doing anything particularly wrong, of course, but there was nothing in there where I thought, oh yeah, this attribute we really like of him. It was just very bang average. Now, later on in the season, he did go through a run of games towards the end of the season, or sort of the sort of third quarter of the season, where he did have a phase where we did start him a handful of times, and he did start to prove his worth. Because every player, when you give him a run of games, even the first couple, they're a bit, they're not quite sharp, not match fit, maybe they don't quite have the legs in them because they haven't had the minutes. They can look a bit shaky, but sometimes you need to just give them a bit more time. EDOUARD is an absolute prime example of that, because when I first seen him play, I didn't see one attribute where I thought we needed it at all. I thought he was quite poor the first couple of games, sluggish, added nothing, and a bit of a passenger to the team. But then for the last few games of the season, after he was given a run of games, he was arguably one of the first names on the team sheet, better than Dhannoo. In terms of performances anyway, maybe not as a player, they're very different players, but do you know what I mean? So with MICHUT, on that topic, when he did get that run of games, I did start to see a few more attributes. He had a bit more tenacity in his game. It weren't the sort of fancy football that you might have expected from a loanee from PSG, but as a youngster, he was showing that tenacity. He was tracking back a few hard challenges, and he wasn't afraid to get stuck in. And then the attacking game, what we were sort of told about before we signed, it started to show itself naturally, started to flow. Where he was picking up the ball, driving forward in tight areas, his passing range was really good. But was it enough? Do you know what I mean? Because even after a few half-decent performances, and you did start to see a little bit, he was dropped and he wasn't to be seen. He was on the bench, and there's a reason for that. There must be a reason for that. EDOUARD started to shine. And of course, Dhannoo is a sort of mainstay within the starting 11, which, again, that's a whole other topic, isn't it, with Dhannoo? I really like Dhannoo. I absolutely see his potential, and I see his qualities right now as well, whereas some others think we only have him in because he's the sort of token Makamu who, do you know what I mean? He comes through the academy, so he has to stay regardless of ability or performances, whereas for me, I absolutely see Dhannoo's quality and potential, of course. But either way, that's straying off topic a little bit. MICHUT, for me, again, it's in the middle. When the news broke that he wasn't going to be signing, or we weren't going to be chasing the option, we did have the option to buy him, and I think there is a level of his side not wanting to sign as well, or I personally think there may have been a little bit of both, where we might have said, yeah, okay, we might sign you, we will sign you, but we can't guarantee A, B, and C, and then he wanted that A, B, and C. I probably think that is the way it went. But we will have a look at the statement, but for me, again, I'm not particularly heartbroken. I can see the potential in the lad, but I also think with the rumours of Joby Bellingham signing, potentially anyway, it looks like we are going to sign him at some point. Another central midfielder, someone who's showing even more potential than EDOUARD Michut. Similar position, he can pick up the ball, and it could potentially a box-to-box midfielder in Bellingham. We're going to have others coming back, like the captain, skipper. We could end up overflowing there unnecessarily, and Michut wouldn't get a look in, I don't think, if that was the case. So I do understand it. Again, not particularly heartbroken, but we will have a look at the statement from the club, and then of course in the comments down below, it'll be really, really interesting to see what you guys think of this. Are you gutted? Do you think we should have paid? I think it was 2 point something million or 2.5 million or something we could have paid. But either way, let's have a look at the club statement. So the club have said, Sunderland AFC today confirms that EDOUARD Michut will return to PSG following the end of the 2022-23 campaign. The Frenchman moved to Wearside on a season-long loan in August and went on to make 28 appearances for the Black Cats, including 25 in the Sky Bet Championship, as the club registered a top 6 finish. Michut contributed 3 assists in red and white, whilst also scoring a memorable goal against Sheffield United in front of the Roker end after linking with compatriot Abdullah Bar. Sporting director Christian Speakman said EDOUARD played a prominent role throughout his loan spell at the Stade Milan, and we thank him for his contribution. He is highly respected by all at Sunderland AFC, but following a period of dialogue with the player and his representatives, all parties mutually agreed it was best to pursue other opportunities at this moment in time. We have thoroughly enjoyed working with Edu and wish him well for the future. So I don't know what you guys take from that, but when I look at that, I can't decide whether it is just he doesn't want to come back or he doesn't want to stay, and we're just kind of saying the sort of political thing of, both parties have mutually parted, or, they come to a mutual decision, or maybe it was just entirely the club and they were trying to show a bit more respect to him by saying, it was up to him as well. I don't know. Make of that what you will. Again, let me know in the comments down below. But like I say, I'm not particularly heartbroken by this at all. I was very, very 50-50 on it. I'd be happy if we signed him. I wouldn't, begrudge it or complain about it, because I do think there's a potential player in there. But I also think we could go for much better options, i.e., Joby Bellingham. If that is to happen anyway, I could keep on speaking about it as if it's dead on. But like I say, you've got some of the biggest journalists and outlets stating that Bellingham is pretty much on the brink of signing. I don't know when that can happen. It could be weeks to come, or it could be announced soon. I don't know, obviously. But yeah, so in the comments down below, let me know what you think about the situation. Would you have signed EDOUARD Michut if, I think it was a club option 2.5 million, what it is. Would you have gone for that? Or are you quite happy, or you're not particularly bothered? Like me, really, I'm not massively bothered. Again, there's a potential player in there. 100%. Not saying that Michut is a bad player. I think he's still some way off it. If you want to press again for a top 6 finish or a top half finish, whatever, next season, I don't think EDOUARD Michut is the answer. There's a potential player in there, but I think it's going to take him a good 2 or 3 years to really show his potential. Could he do that? Could he have done that with us? He probably could, but again, there's better options out there, in my opinion. But there we go, guys. Let me know what you think. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button for me. It'd be massively, massively appreciated. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already to become a fully fledged member of the SUNDERLAND army. But for now, take care, stay jammy.